Prince De Rola often gets mentioned in various Rolling Stones biographies as a mysterious young aristocrat who got busted with Brian Jones. Apart from the fact that he and Brian were close friends, little is known about him. A fascinating figure in the 1960s as an actor both in Europe and Hollywood, musician, fashion trendsetter, lover of some of the most beautiful women of the time, and friends with a veritable who's who of pop icons. To this day, he remains a man of wealth and taste.
Is that what?
Yes, Degree of Murder. Volker Schlendorf,
Got it. Okay.
was
German director.
was doing that. Brian had done the music for it.
Right.
The score was Brian's, and that's why they of course wanted Brian's presence and so on. And it seemed like the right time to, and all those photographs you see of following the us on the old Palais steps, and then at this party with Anita giggling, and we're all sort of half under the table and so on, and so there's a whole series of these photographs. Those correspond to that. What?
Those are the ones you that one you have posted.
I don't think I posted them. Somebody else did.
There's a 3-shot of the three of you.
Yeah.
Now, was Keith at Cannes at this point?
He was, and our friend Keith states that in his book that he says that he fell in with the poacher. That's me, he says in the book, indeed, Keith, much to my amazement, Keith was extremely friendly with me. And I was so surprised, that's the first time that I really became close to Keith. I mean, we'd known each other for 2 years, and I'd seen Keith. But you see, Keith had a very strange life. Keith lived at Redlands, and he was in love with a girl called Linda Keith, who, strangely enough, by some odd coincidence, I saw her some years ago. She used to come down here on the beach with her now husband and their dogs. And Linda Keith and Keith Richards' breakup was a big tragedy. He was really depressed. And he left Redlands and came to live at Courtfield Road with Brian and Anita. That's how they started hanging out together and so on. And then it develops through this. Their relationship developed because Anita and Keith had leanings towards one another, and then Brian fell desperately ill and had to be left in a hospital in France. Right. But then history says that, they abandoned him. It's not true. There were letters every day between Anita and Keith and so on. And, between Anita and Brian. And Keith, and they were compelled to go on with their trip. There was nothing they couldn't stay in this godforsaken part of France. Brian couldn't be transported back to England, so he had to stay in this hospital, and until he was better and able to join them in Morocco. By the time he got to Morocco, there was this thing going on, and of course, it was a very difficult thing for him, and then there was these tales of, I wasn't there, so I can't tell you but I can just imagine, knowing all parties, how this thing went down. And basically, at one point Brian was so angry that he punched at Anita, missed her, and cut his hand. I remember that he had a bad cut on his hand when he came to Italy later on. At any rate,
so at Cannes, Keith was with Anita by that point. You went with Brian because Brian wants to get Anita back.
Yeah. and he had to go, and he said, I gave him hope that it might be possible to effect this reconciliation.